Mic check, mic check. Motor Masters podcast. Your host, man, of course. Me, I got two special guests. I'm gonna clap it up for them real quick. Two very, very special guests. This episode is special to me. I got two New Yorkers for the first time on my podcast from out of town. It's funny saying out of town when I'm from New York as well, though. But I got Mr. Malik Yoba and James McKinnon. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. I'm doing good. I like to start the episode with just people talking about their background, just who they are, if y'all don't mind. So I'll start with you.
My name is James McKinnon. I'm from New York, in commercial development space. I've been managing and developing properties for the Cardinelli family for probably 25 years.
Long time.
Various forms of construction, development, leasing, things like that. So
Okay. And you?
First of all, it's Dr. Malik Yoba.
Dr. Malik Yoba. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Respect on my name,
I'm
bro.
sorry.
That's when
Dr.
you hide
Malik
behind
Yoba.
your own camera. Don't disrespect us.
Dr. Malik Yoba.
Thank you, sir. I earned that, man. Thank you, Livingstone College. So yeah, you may or may not know me from film and television. And I'm a kid from the South Bronx, raised in Harlem. Currently live in Brooklyn, where you're from.
Yes. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, sir. And I've always been a community-centered person. So we're here at the Boys and Girls Club at the Teen Center. This is a Teen Center, right?
Correct.
It's a Teen Center.
Correct.
So this is a perfect place for someone like me because I've been doing this work in community since I was a kid myself. So I've always been someone who is community-minded, working with young people for a long time. And I got into real estate development in 2007. And something that I've always been passionate about growing up in the South Bronx, in Harlem, in a marginalized community. We were fortunate that we grew up in low-income housing co-ops. So from the 70s, I had an opportunity to understand what ownership felt like in a community that was divested in, right? Or that was not divested in, that was divested or wasn't invested in.
Gotcha.
I don't know how to say that. But so yeah, man, this opportunity to get into development is long desire and passion. Like I said, starting in 2007.
If you don't mind, what was it about like that time frame that made you get into
2007?
Yeah.
An opportunity. So I actually tried to do my first development deal when I was 17. So I was a kid who grew up in, like I said, in New York, and I used to be a BMX racer, and there was no place to race our bikes in the city. I used to have to ride my bike over the George Washington Bridge to go to New Jersey to race, and I didn't understand how come we couldn't have one in Central Park. So I actually met with the Parks Department as a 17-year-old to build a BMX track in Central Park. And although it never happened, that was the first time I actually met with the city to try to get something built. And so, like I said, growing up in Harlem in the South Bronx and seeing, the destitute sort of conditions around us, I never understood how come we had to live like that. And if I went to school downtown, kids lived on Fifth Avenue with apartments overlooking Central Park and had country homes in the Hamptons. And so I was exposed to that. And so for me, I wanted to figure out how I could bring that kind of energy to where I was from. And so in 2007, I had an opportunity to have a seat at the table with some developers who were from New York, but were developing in Baltimore.
Okay.
And so I got a chance to learn ground up development, having a background in education and working with young people. I always felt that I wanted to find a way to help people understand development. And so I started Yoba Development in 2017, right around the time you started your podcast.
Yeah.
It's a longer story, which I'll get into, but so that's kind of how I got here.
And yeah, you mentioned like trying to just explain development to people. So like, what are some initial steps you would think people would want to take to learn development?
Well, there's a great book called The Birth of a Building. If someone wants to know how to approach the world of development, I think that's a great place to start. But I think the only way to really know it is to do it. Like you can go to school and learn. You can learn by like flipping a house, but you have to be in it to see, what it takes. And I think James could speak to that as well.
James.
Definitely. It development can be challenging, and I think that it's not necessarily the building part that's all that challenging. A lot of it has to do with the bureaucracy of getting things done. It slows up projects. It makes projects more costly. Getting through red tape is difficult. And I think that a lot of the joy that comes from building something. You think back to being a kid, whether it was building a sandcastle, whatever it was. There's a lot of joy in building it, and I love developing. I love building. I love developing. I love as Malik said, just ground up development from start to finish. I love restorations, redeveloping things that people don't necessarily think should be redeveloped, or saving buildings that people are afraid of saving, and taking chances and investing in them. The difficult part is bureaucracy. I think that's where we reach out for help, like any of the communities that we develop in. You try and find local architects, local contractors, local expediters, just people that know and understand the inner workings of a particular community, because they're all different. So that's probably the most difficult part of development for me, is just dealing with local governments.
Oh, I want to get back to local
I want
governments.
to piggyback on that though. He says that I tell him he's one of the rare people in this game, particularly people that look like us, that have access to the capital to make these moves. So if you ask the average Black developer, the number one thing they're going to say is lack of capital is one of the most difficult parts, or lack of resources, being under-networked. Because yes, the politics is part of it. Capital is actually part of it. Obviously, getting skilled tradespeople, the community engagement piece. So there's a lot of elements that make it all come together. But the bureaucracy that he talks about is real as well. But the capital piece can't be understated.
Well, I think that to build on that, the amount of time that it takes to get through the red tape in order to get these projects developed is also very costly. And that's not something that people take into consideration. So many people start projects, they have great ideas, they start projects, and they don't have the capital or the wherewithal. They get short-term loans, they get bridge loans, things like that, and they don't have the capital or the wherewithal to hold out until you can get your permits, until you can put shovels in the ground. That stuff's really difficult. It's really hard, and it can be very costly.
Yeah.
You mentioned costly, but you also mentioned that in conjunction with red tape. So, like, when you speak of red, I'm not in real estate, but when you speak of red tape, like, what's some things that come to mind for you?
So before we even get to the red tape, let's get to the red line. Right. So when you think about, so we're in Augusta. So we'll use Regency Mall as an example, right? So if you think about what the federal government did, right, following states saying these are areas that we're going to invest in or not invest in, right? And so even where the Regency Mall sits here in Augusta is, of the four corners of Fort Gordon Parkway, that's the one area that isn't an opportunity zone.
Yeah.
So even in current political legislative climate, the opportunity to invest in an area where you don't have the support, right, that can be problematic. So growing up as a kid in the South Bronx or Harlem, I didn't know that those were areas that were redlined, right? To also answer your earlier question about how do people get into it, development, there's a great book called The Color of Law by a guy named Richard Rothstein, which talks about how the federal government created ghettos by not investing in communities where people that live that look like us. And so the red tape is part of policy, right? People, it's not just someone says, well, I don't want you to do this, but there's also codified laws that says you can't invest. We're not going to invest. We're not going to allow mortgages. We're not going to insure these properties. We're not going to develop. We're not, and right. And so if that tax base isn't there, right, to If you don't develop, you don't have that tax base.
Right.
You have poor education. You don't have good housing, good health care, all those other social determinants of health, right? So the red tape is a big piece, and it really is about people's will. Do you really want this to happen? So back to Regency Mall. Anybody who's from Augusta, I've met people. I was in Brazil last year and ran into people from Augusta who knew the Regency Mall, and we talked about. I was down there on a real estate mission, and I was talking about developing there, and they were like, "Where else are you working?" I was like, "Well, we have this project in Augusta," and it's the will of the people in the community that say we want this to happen, so we're going to do everything we can
Right.
to make sure it happens. Or it's folks that say we're going to do everything we can
To make it
to make sure it doesn't happen. That's very, very real as well. So, but no, I think you want to say something about
No,
that.
please.
Yeah.
That was, and I think that is one of the things that we've run into. Mr. Cardinelli, my father-in-law, bought that property almost 30 years ago.
This is Regency Mall.
Regency
Yeah.
Mall.
Okay.
And, he believed in Augusta. He's like, well, it's a few miles away from Augusta National, and, it's in a great location. It's centered in Augusta, and I'm sure they're going to invest money and revitalize this area, and we can grow with Augusta. Um, you know, when he purchased that property, he saw great growth, and the fact that it hasn't happened in South Augusta is mind-boggling. That it's been 25 years, and you see all of this money being spent outside of South Augusta, and the money's just not being spent there. And I think that is that's something else that's difficult as a developer, is you see a community and you know that there's so much potential there.
Yeah.
And we've met with so many people here over the years, so many really good people. Unfortunately, a lot of people had a lot of different ideas over what should be done with that property, what should be done on Gordon Highway. And, it makes it difficult when you have two, as Malik said, people that want to see something happen and people that don't want to see something
Right.
happen.
Right.
And this is a prime example of that.
I must, like I said, just like y'all, I'm from New York. I do remember Regency Mall when it was open. I wasn't living down here yet, but I did see a movie. I seen the wood in there. Back in the day, I remember. That's my only memory from there. Came down one summer, seen the wood. I came back to live here. It was gone.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Where's this mall that was on our side of town?"
Right.
It was no more. And then now I hear about it. You hear about it every so often. It's almost like to get Augusta riled up. Regency Mall, you throw it in, and it's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And then it's like, "Oh, nothing."
Right.
This is 20 years, like you said now, at this point. As far as ideas, as far as what to do with the property, has there been any idea that was presented to you that you just liked a lot?
Most of them. Years ago, I know my father-in-law tried working probably 20 years ago to get the new judicial center that was built put there. And, he was working with the mayor's office and the administration to try and, work out a deal with them to get that done and move there. And ultimately, they decided they didn't want to put it in South Augusta, and they built it where they did. We've never turned down any idea. We're open to any ideas to try and figure out how to redevelop it. I have been involved with it for probably 10 years, trying to get something done here. And, I was working with the last administration with Hardy Davis. He had an idea to try and revitalize Gordon Highway. And we, thought that, okay, well, the James Brown Arena needed to be renovated. They were going to knock it down, build a new one. He's like, hey, what about putting the arena at the mall? I said, great, love the idea. You bring the arena to the mall, we can justify, spending our money to go ahead and develop the balance of the site.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, we put together a land lease for them. And there was some pushback over the cost of the land lease. So we said, okay, fine. You know what? We'll give it to you for $1 a year for 50 years. We'll give you a $1 a year lease for the amount of land they needed. I forget how much it was, 15 acres or something like that. We put together a really attractive offer, and ultimately the community voted, or some people in the community voted, that they didn't think the arena should be moved and it should stay where it was. And now they're redoing the arena where it is. So we had that we worked on. And then we have this newest project that we're working on now, which is a multi-use development. We spent a lot of time down here. I met Stephen Kendrick down here, some years ago, and we, I he introduced me to, Cal Ray from the Economic Development Council, and to Sean Edwards from the Land Bank Authority, and a lot of local commissioners, and we talked about the land, and you know, I'm like, okay, guys, what do you think we can do here? What can we do with this property? And the idea of doing a multi-use development, we came up with this plan to do 1,000 apartment units there and about 600,000 square foot of retail. Felt like it was a good plan. The numbers make sense. The need for housing here in this community makes sense. There was a lot of, we got a lot of feedback as to whether to go with market rate housing or affordable housing. A lot of people are pushing for affordable. Affordable doesn't necessarily increase the tax base, doesn't necessarily bring people into the community that have expendable income. So we felt like we would do mostly market rate housing and then probably some workforce. And love the idea. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on plans and getting approvals, and we did get a PUD approval for a change of use to a multi-use development. We are commercial developers. We do strip centers and things like that. We're not residential apartment developers. So the feeling was that we would develop the commercial portion of the land and find a partner, hopefully a local partner, to do the residential development. And that's been very challenging. It's been much more difficult than we thought it was going to be to find, through Cal and Stephen and Sean, we've met with just about every local developer or large local developer in the Augusta area that we could. And most of them just felt that it's too heavy of a lift. It's too costly. It's too big of a risk to develop in South Augusta. They feel like there are other areas outside, whether it's North Augusta, different Aiken County, whatever it is. They felt there were other areas that were easier to make money. And we see a lot of residential buildings going up in these other communities that are just not happening in South Augusta. So that's been the challenge for us for the past few years. So we looked outside of Augusta to try and find a residential partner. And that's when I went to Malik and I was like, listen, you guys have been able to do something like this in Baltimore and you're working on some other projects. Can you help me try and find a residential partner for this thing? Because it's just not a space that we know. We're not in residential development. So we've brought a few people down and met with some people from out of the area. And people get here, a lot of them get fired up, they get excited about it, they start digging into a little bit, they get a little pushback. We had a developer really excited about it, about 8 months ago, and everybody left the table feeling really good about it. They had a meeting with the mayor's office, and they got some negative feedback about the development and about, the mall, and they walked away. So we're not necessarily getting the help that we need from the administration either to put these deals together and to put this project together.
Right.
And that's what I say. It's not something that, I go back to the will of people.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Right. So, we're sitting here at the Teen Center in Augusta, and in this room, we met with commissioners, we met with, Augusta Technical College, we met with law enforcement, the sheriff's office, we met with the marshal's office, we met with, there's a brother that does a sports development education center, I forget his name at the moment. So, one, you gather local stakeholders and you say, what do you need? What do you see? What do you want? Right? Can we help bring your vision to life at this 77-acre site? So when James talks about leaving excited, you have this process you go through to make sure that you aren't just an outsider coming in saying, this is what I think should go here. But really, when I say ground up development, it really is inclusive of what do the people need and want. Like we talked about with, Kim Evans, CEO here, about having a teen center at the site, right? Having senior care, having, child care. So really not just putting sticks and bricks up, but really taking a holistic approach, right? There's a belief that development should be a bundle of goods and services, right? So literally from the cradle to the grave. How do you create a community that can really care for the people holistically? And so having the experience for 20 years working in a city like Baltimore, very similar conditions to South Augusta, not just in terms of the economic and cultural realities of the people, but also the political will or lack thereof. And so, you asked the question earlier, like, what does it take to develop, right? And I talked about will. And so that intentionality of belief that every citizen of a city, a state, a country deserves housing, deserves services and education, opportunity to good jobs and healthcare, all of those things that make a society healthy and whole. When that piece is lacking, right, it can be mind-boggling, right? James just talked about you spent hundreds of $1,000s on market studies,
on planning,
on plans,
just planning,
permitting, all of these things to move toward the goal. In his 25 years of doing this work, they've never acquired a property that wasn't developed in 3 years. So this is 7, 8 times the length of time that they're used to. I got involved in the project. It was probably 2022 when he said, "Hey, man, you saw what you guys did in Baltimore."
And excuse me for a second. I've been doing this for 25 years. The family's been doing it for 60 years and generations. So, my father-in-law has been developing, commercial centers for 60 years. He's 82 years old now. He started developing when he was 20 years old, and his father was a developer in Brooklyn before that.
Right.
So, we're not talking about people that don't know how to move projects forward.
Right.
I mean, and he's not, he's and in his 60 years of doing this, he's sold one property. He develops properties, he holds them, and he's not, we have a lot of properties in all, economic ranges, whether they're in, marginalized communities or in, upper income areas. So, this has never been a short-term play for us. This is a, find a community, work in the community, develop in the community, partner up with the community, and grow in the community. So that has always been the intention with this site, just like it has been with all of the other communities that we're in.
You mentioned, Kendrick. I wouldn't ask, not even just him, but like who has been helpful, I guess, in moving forward with some ideas for Regency Mall, as far as like, pushing it forward and it to happening.
Listen, we've met with a lot of really good people. A lot of people, a lot of the commissioners that we've sat with have been like, listen, tell us what we can do. Tell us how we can help. We've met with a lot of, the spiritual leaders in the community, just a lot of people in the community, people from the Economic Development Council. I think I mentioned Cal Ray earlier. I mean, anytime I've talked to a developer and I've needed information or I've needed statistics, I can get on the phone with Cal and he will send us everything that they have, every study that they've done, talk to us about different people that are interested in coming into the area. Sean from the Land Bank Authority has been great about, gathering information for us and, just trying to help us understand what the community needs. And, Stephen's been great. These guys are the ones that keep us coming back. Every time we get discouraged, every time we get frustrated, these guys, they don't quit. They believe in this community. Yes, men and women. I mean, Kim Evans is amazing. She's just always a sounding board, and she knows the area. She knows the community well. She knows what it needs, and it's we've met a lot of great people here, and it's why we keep coming back. It's why we haven't given up. It's why we don't want to quit on this.
Well, the truth is I keep coming because I want to play at Augusta National. That's the only reason I'm really here. I forgot to tell you that part. Can someone help me get on? Play 3 holes. Hole 15 alone.
Oh my God, that's funny.
You think I'm joking? I'm not.
No, I know you said it last night too. I was there last night. That's the second time mentioning it now. You're serious about this. But I was gonna ask, like, being from both of y'all, like, you mentioned it being frustrating. I know business is business, it shouldn't be personal, but like, how frustrating is it for you not to have a property where it don't take 3-4 years to get it fixed up?
It's frustrating. I mean, because it's like anything else, man. Like, look, man, I work in Hollywood too, right? That's a frustrating place. You're a kid with a dream. And for me, it started, I don't know how old you were when you first thought you might want to do development? How old were you?
I wanted to be an architect when I was in high school.
Okay. I don't think I've known this guy
I
for
wanted to be an
over a
architect when I was
decade.
in high school.
I've never known that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so similarly, right? You have this dream as a kid, right? You're just like, I want to put something here. I see this empty lot and I want to do something beautiful. I grew up in a household. My mother loved Architectural Digest and design magazines. And so I grew up with a strong appreciation for these things. So it's frustrating because you don't think that it should be that hard. There's enough elements of development that are hard, but the people part, and like I keep going back to will and intentionality, you know, do you believe that this should happen? Because, as you talked about Regency Mall, coming here as a kid, going to the movies. I meet people all over America and outside of the country. The minute you mention Augusta and you mention Regency Mall, people have a history. I used to go school shopping there. I used to go to the movies. I had my first date. I met my husband there. My grandmama used to work there, whatever it was. And so, and they go, please, please, I really want something to happen there, right? And then you meet other people who feel like nothing should happen there. And they want to keep a narrative going on that says, folks can't get it done, right? Or they might say, well, I heard such and such was supposed to happen, 2 years ago. Well, what happened? How come you didn't get it done? So from the outside, if you're not in the process, you don't know, what the issues were, whether it's political will, whether it's some obstructionist bureaucrat that is just saying no. So, for instance, in Baltimore, same example. So when I came here and saw some of the same conditions, I would tell Steve, I would tell James, and I've talked to Stephen about it as well. I've seen this playbook before. And when there are people who simply don't want you to succeed, like I came and did a site visit with Cal on site. I don't know, should I talk about that? What happened? No, I just literally went with Cal, went on my phone and, drove around and just posted on Instagram. The next day it shows up in the Augusta Press. Like, who's this actor from New York coming down here to try to do this thing? And we looked up the development project he says he's a part of in Baltimore, and there was no picture of him at the groundbreaking. So you're casting doubt on our ability and our intention, our will to serve the people.
Right.
This isn't just about coming here to make money.
And when the community casts that doubt, think about how difficult it is to get. So we haven't been able to find local developers that are willing to take on. And when I say this is a Herculean task, we're talking about a $500 million project.
Right.
This is not, people are like, oh, how come you haven't broken ground yet? Anyone that's ever built a house before, you built a 2,500 square foot home, it could take you a year to get it built. You don't build a $500 million project. We got these approvals a couple of years ago. I would love to have had shovels in the ground already. But you take any of these projects. I think the city's probably got $300 million plus or minus in splash funds for various projects, money that's been put aside for projects that haven't been started yet, for projects that haven't been finished. This is not an easy thing to do. And anyone that's ever been involved in just building a home understands how difficult it is. So, the people use the fact that it's taking time to get this project done to say, oh, well, that will never happen. That's not going to happen. You go online and you see all the negative comments. Oh, I would never shop there. I would never go there. It's a waste of money. They shouldn't do this. Well, when you bring in outside developers and they start doing their due diligence and they see all of these negative comments and they hear, it's like, well, if the community doesn't want it, why are we investing our money here? So the negativity makes it much more difficult to get a project like this done, which is already a Herculean task.
I was going to ask you that because I was wondering, how do you get, even you guys yourself, but how do you get y'all and other people like investors, outside investors, re-engaged when you had your hopes up one time, it was close, and it's like, okay.
You only lose when you quit, right? It's like anything else.
Back to will, like you said.
Yeah, we all have different intention or mission, I suppose, right? And like I was shocked. Like I posted, I was excited saying,
Right.
hey guys, this is what we're working on. This is the site. I get a call from him the next morning. Please take that down. It's like, what happened? And then he shows me the Augusta Press piece. And I'm like, bro, really? Like, that person never reached out to me. That person never, I don't even know who the person is, right? Never confirmed anything, but that's intentionality and that's will. That's someone that says, I don't like what I'm seeing. So therefore I'm going to use my platform to disparage you, to cast doubt on you so that anybody coming behind you or they Google it, this is what's going to come up. Right. And so for me, so starting Yoba Development, right, our slogan is builder of people, places, and things. My story into starting my company and why I wanted to start it is because coming from Hollywood and understanding the power of storytelling, which is why you started your podcast, is that there's tremendous power in telling stories.
Tremendous.
And that intersection of media and telling stories, education, and building go together for me, right? That's my intentionality in this space. What can I bring to this business? One, it's really, really important that we educate people. How does this happen? You can't just stand on the sidelines and wish a community transforms. You have to be engaged. And you don't have to be a developer. If you're in telling stories, if you're in IT,
Right.
if you're in marketing, if you're in finance, you like working with your hands, you're an artistic, you like designing. No matter what it is you do, there's a place for you in this built environment. And particularly for people in our communities that don't come from families that for generations have been developing, I think that's really important. Um, we talk about even back again to this teen center, like it's not enough to have the teen center as part of the development, but the young people, right? We out last night, I was one of the
Yeah.
super judges for the Youth of the Year, right? All of those young people I saw on stage, every single one of them talked about they want to give back to the community.
Yep.
Their exposure is limited, right? So unless we are intentional about saying, you know what, you want to give back? So one of the young men, Xavier, he's in cybersecurity, right? He doesn't realize how his skill set in technology plays a part in development unless we teach him that and connect those dots. And so I know I'm saying a lot, and I probably come back to the same point. So I'm really passionate
I'm
about
following.
it. I'm passionate because I didn't always understand development, right? But someone said to me, the first person to actually draw the connection between film or production and development was a developer named Otis Pitts in Miami. He used to be a police officer. He died a couple of years ago, and I was in Miami in 2005 promoting a play. And he says, "You know what, man?" And we went to him to be a sponsor. And he said, I've always wanted to learn development. He goes, production. If you teach me how to produce a play, I'll teach you development. And I never saw the parallels between a production of film or a play and real estate development. But there are a lot. So if you're the developer, you're executive producer of a film. If you are the architect, you're the scriptwriter. If you are the project manager, you are the unit production manager. The same trades, construction, electric, design, architect, all those things play a role in film, and they play a role or theater. If you're designing a set, a stage, right? It's the same thing. It's architectural drawings. You have someone has to put the furniture, right? Same thing. So for me, when I was able to draw those parallels, it's the thing that first made me go, you know what? I want to pursue that in a more thoughtful way. And then in 2007, a guy that I knew from when I was doing New York Undercover, actually, his cousin was a writer on the show. He got into development. I was actually raising money for a play. And he says, hey, man, we bought 14 acres in Baltimore. Why don't you become an investor and come down and see what we're doing? And that's how I learned, right? And then in 2018, I love telling this story. I was playing a real estate developer on a TV show called God Friended Me. And while we were on set, a friend of mine was developing a city block across from where we were shooting. Down the block was a housing projects. And I'm on the set thinking, my worlds are converging. And at the same time, our Baltimore project was under construction. And so I'm on set and there's film cameras. I'm down the block from the projects. And I'm thinking, how many people from the projects walk by film sets or construction sites every day and have no idea about either space? I want to find a way to bring real estate filmmaking and work with young people together. And that was the birth of Yoba Development, to say, how do I use filmmaking and storytelling to educate community, to teach young people, to start programs at the high school, college, and community level at the same time while we pursue development projects. And so for me, this has to be part of it as well. And even coming to Augusta, it couldn't be just come and pursue the development itself, but how are we going to make sure that young people growing up in the city really feel like they have agency and can participate and learn skills here that they could invest here, but also take it anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And contribute. And that's really the biggest part for me.
You know, I want to go back to what you said
Was I on the
about
soapbox? I feel like I was on the soapbox.
No,
I'm
you're
gonna
good.
step down now. I'm gonna
No,
sip my
please.
water.
I want to go to, you know, something you talked about earlier about intention. And I think that, you know, I have to say this because there have been so many negative things over the years written about, you know, the family and about, you know, just what we've done with the mall or what hasn't been done with the mall. And a lot of people don't understand all of the different things that we've tried to do there. In working with local people, understanding that we're not from here. Talk to us about what the community needs, as Malik was saying. But, you know, the intention and the commitment, you know, my father-in-law is 82 years old, okay?
I think it's important to say he's an 82-year-old Italian man.
Well,
just the optics of that.
Yeah, that's
I think
true.
it's really important.
You're right.
Because it's very rare that you have 3 generations of a white family that entrust a black man to lead the charge for their business.
Right.
I think that's important,
I
especially in
agree with you.
America,
Well,
especially in these times.
And that's, you know, he's not willing to give up here, you know, and you know, I hope that he lives to be, you know, 120 years old. You know, he's a wonderful man, but the fact of the matter is, you know, he's in his 80s, and projects like this take a long time, and he's not giving up. And I doubt very much he'll see a return on our investment in his lifetime. You know, so he's doing this for his family, and he's doing it for the community. You're talking about a man that doesn't live here. He's not from here. He has no connection to the community, but yet he's not willing to give up on this project. And when I told him I was coming down here, he's like, "Oh, what do you have going on?" You know, I talked to him about the different things that are happening, and, you know, he's always checking in with me to see what new things are happening here. And, you know, I said, listen, you know, something's going to happen with this. He's like, well, we learn something new every time we go down there. I said, you know, we will not fail. I said, you know, we will not fail. We're going to get something done with this property. And, you know, he's like, listen, and it's never a failure. He's like, you know, everything that you're doing, he's like, we're learning, we're growing. He's like, and eventually something will work. He's like, you know, yes, it's taking us much longer to get this developed than any of the other projects that we've ever been involved with. He's like, but hopefully when it's done, it'll be the most rewarding. He's like, I just hope I see it get done, you know, while I'm still here.
You know, that's where you're gonna have your podcast studio, right? I'm just saying, putting it out there.
I would love to if we can get things done, right? I would love to.
When you talk about, you know, here, you know, you talk about a man that's got a commitment to a community that he's not even a part of, you know, and yeah,
perspective.
Listen, let's not deny we're absolutely trying to make money. The intent is not to not make money. You know, this isn't charity, but by the same token, you know, he says to me all the time, if we can make money while doing good, if we can do good while doing good, he's like, that's the intention right now, you know, and that's what we're trying to do here. And, you know, he's just, you know, I hate showing him when negative things are written in the paper or talked about on the news because, you know, he could walk away from this at any point in time. He doesn't have to put his money behind this, you know, and he's choosing to. He's choosing to take his time, my time. You know, I get paid a lot of money. You know, I spend a lot of time down here, and he's good with it. He's okay with it. You know, and there's something to be said for that.
Did that make it hard for y'all, like, to trust media here as well? Like,
absolutely.
I'm sure y'all get asked a lot of questions.
So
this is the first time anybody y'all have ever spoke about this stuff.
I don't speak for that reason. You know,
this is the most authentic they'll get to anything with Regency Mall right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, but that's why, you know, the overdevelopment, and part of what we bring here is the media side, which we haven't fully activated in this market. But that's an important piece that will come, is being able to control your own narrative, because otherwise you have people like the Augusta Press, which will put things up there with never talking to you, don't know who you are, and will choose intentionally to say something negative. And so the storytelling has to be a part of it, and it's really important. I'm looking at the time though.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. I definitely appreciate y'all for talking to me, and hopefully, it's some media with some integrity out here as well. So we like to get the real story, like to talk to the people and get the truth out there. So I'm happy that y'all was able to sit down and talk to me about Regency Mall. I think that it's gonna be good for Augusta, just to get the learning experience and some of the things that y'all have been going through versus the clickbait and whatever else been said about. So I definitely appreciate y'all for stopping and talking.
No, thank you for the time and opportunity.
Yes, thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
All right, man. I
This is our
appreciate
first
that.
interview together.
Yeah,
We need to
sure
do
Y'all
more.
did a good job.
We did good. We
Yeah.
play off. You see, I start looking at him. We play off each other. We're gonna do
Yeah, I was
some
checking the time too. I was gonna get you right. You know what I'm saying? I was checking the time. We good. We good. Look, he's smiling now. Look, I love it. I love it. I
he
love
works
it.
hard, man, and it's an honor, honestly. When they reached out and said, "Hey, we saw what you guys did in Baltimore. Can you come down and do that?" And my partners in Baltimore didn't have the bandwidth, because we're still dealing with it on every level. Like literally right now, we had a meeting set up with the housing secretary for the state. I had to go to the governor, Wes Moore, and say, "Hey, man, Wes, this is what's happening in your state. This is what's happening in your city of Baltimore. This is the obstructionist behavior that we've been dealing with. How can you have a mission to bring more housing. This is what we need." And so it's not specific to Augusta. It's a spirit, man.
Yeah.
It's a spirit, and this is a spiritual thing for me, for certain. I feel like God has led my life to this point. This is not just a hobby. Like, sometimes I work on some aspect of development every single day for the last 20-some years, and I've only more recently been more public about it because I wanted to learn, right, before I could run my mouth and felt confident. No, really,
you speak well.
But for the better part of 15 years, less than that, for 10 years or so, I really didn't say much publicly, a little bit here and there, but I've been a lot more active and sharing what I know, helping other people know what I know, encouraging more people to come into the space, because look, there's a need. What's the number we heard today? How many more need for housing in this?
30-something
30.
thousand
Who's going to build all the housing?
by 2030.
Yeah, there's a need. 20-something, 30,000 units of housing are needed in this market alone. 7 million in the country. And that's the reason why housing crisis, as we know it, unaffordability, is because there's a lack of supply. And so, I got a Zoom to get to.
I got you. I appreciate you.
God
Thank
bless
you.
you.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.